Welcome to the tutorial version for Prisoners of War for the NES. This is definitely a classic game that I used to own. I never could beat it when I was younger. But I did beat the Japanese version maybe a few years ago on emulation. It's been too long for me to make a comparison about the difficulty, of the Japanese version compared to the US version. They may be identical. I remember trying them both out and thinking they felt pretty much the same. So I'm not sure if there's any differences between the two regions. But I figured it would be good to beat the US version since that's the version that I owned. As well as since I didn't have capture equipment a few years ago. Now I could capture, make a video and a tutorial. I thought it'd be a good game to add to the channel. But yeah, you have unlimited continues, so you'll be able to continue from whatever stage you last got to. But stages can be anywhere from 10 to 12 minutes long, especially later on. So it can be very tough later on in the game, more of an endurance because you have to fight a lot of enemies. And you will want to go in certain doors to get certain items occasionally, but I wouldn't go in every door you see. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting a lot more enemies than you really need to. So it's more of a choice. Those are optional areas. Whenever you see a door or a cave, it's an optional area to go into. And sometimes you want to avoid it. Sometimes you may want an item that's in one of the gates. A lot of times, especially later in the game, I was avoiding the brass knuckle. What the brass knuckle does, as you can see that I got it from one of those doors, what it does is it makes your punches as powerful as your kicks. Basically, a kick is twice as powerful as a punch. And with the brass knuckle, your punch is the same power as the kick. The punch is faster, but it has less range and less reach. So, really, I find there's really no good use really for the brass knuckle. I mean, you can get some really good combos with it I think if you get a certain distance from the guy, you'll lock them into a combo. Sometimes that can kill them. But for the most part, I find the kick to be much more effective, and I end up pretty much only using the kick and a few weapons later on in the game. So, I would suggest, not going out of your way to get the brass knuckles. You see here, I was still trying to figure out, some of the, what moves were effective, because I haven't played the game in a long time. But you'll see I start playing better later on, For now, I just show, in these videos, I just show my successful completion, so... since the first stage is not too difficult, I didn't have to play it too much, so, it wasn't refined. But later on, I'll have to play a lot better. But yeah, I'll also be able to give you some tips on crowd control. That's going to be the main thing you have to master in this game is getting used to the enemy, behavior, the way they move around, and how close you can get to them safely, dancing around them and still getting the hits in and dodging them. The basic rule that I ended up adhering to the most for this part, just stay up top high and you won't get hit by any grenades. For some reason, I don't even see there's usually a guy throwing grenades. I don't know if it's missing in my capture. That's real strange. I wonder if it's if my capture device doesn't show those bombs that went off when you cross through there. I'm pretty sure there was a guy throwing grenades on the top. But anyway, if you stay in the top area, you'll be able to pass through that safely. But yeah, the main thing to do, you'll see me doing it later. Like I said, it's not too refined here, but if you rapidly kick and you're in front of an enemy, they usually cannot get through that. No matter what their move is, unless they're throwing projectiles at you, they can't get through rapid kicking usually. So you want to keep them about kick length away from you and let them walk into your kick if possible. And of course, while you're mashing kick, and they'll walk into the combo, and you can repeatedly kick them until they go down. And then when they're on the ground, you can walk up to their body, keep kicking, and when they get up, they'll get finished off. So that's something that you'll be using a lot. You also, of course, in these beat-em-up games, you want to switch planes frequently to make the enemies come up to you diagonally. That's how you get them kind of trapped. Oh, here's the guy with the grenades. I guess the other guy didn't. I thought there was something wrong with the capture, because it was weird that there was nobody standing there, but I think it was just he wasn't at that part. But yeah, basically you're going to want to keep the guys between you and your kick. So let them walk into your kick, and then just combo them with the kicks. You see here, I really didn't know this level because I just had picked up the game again. So I barely, beat it, but it was good enough since you get unlimited continues. And I edited out the unsuccessful continues. So if you see my lives jump up in the beginning of the level, it's because it was edited. It took me around 3 hours and 17 minutes to beat the game from when I started, recently. But yeah, you'll see me using that kick heavily, and I pretty much stopped using the punches later in the game because I had to play the levels much better. It does get hard near the end. For this part, you just have to kill these guys and throw the hand grenades at the helicopter. It's a very simple boss. I used a rapid fire controller to minimize mashing, but you'll get the same effect in this game by just mashing punch or kick. I don't know if I had rapid on at this point, but it's pretty much the same thing. In some games it gives you an advantage where the turbo fire switches will actually fire faster than you can do manually. But in this game it seems to just have the same effect as if you were to, rapidly press the button. So yeah, now you see my lives go back up to 2. That's because I edited out my losses. And this level's definitely a good deal harder than the first level. So, you can go in those trailers if you want to get items. A lot of times I would avoid them, especially early on. Later on, there was a few of them that I would go in to get specific items, which I'll explain later. But, later on in the game, I discovered, I really didn't need the brass knuckle, so it was kind of a waste to go in and fight the guys just to get the brass knuckle. I mean, the kick ended up being the only thing I really needed to use. Occasionally, jump kicking is useful for trying to catch the second boss when he moves around because he's fast. And as he's walking past you, you can jump kick him and stun him. So it can be good for stuff like that. For this part, just lure out the motorcycles and just position yourself on the top of that gate like I was doing. And you should be fine. See, when these guys are on the ground, you keep kicking, and they'll get up into your kick, and it'll finish them off. They can't recover from that. So whenever you can stand over a guy's body and keep kicking, you'll be able to finish them off. Sometimes you have to leave the body on the ground and let them get up because you have other enemies approaching you, but you'll learn how to really move and dance around the enemies as you play more and more. You really have to master that for this game because you will be fighting a shitload of enemies, and it becomes kind of an endurance task, later in the game. So that's going to be the main challenge of the game. There's really not any platforming or anything like that. It's just, learning to manage all the enemies. It does help if you memorize positioning in a lot of parts. Like when guys fire guns or throw knives, that can kill you in one hit. Same with enemies that throw hand grenades. So for those parts, like this here, where the guys just turn around and shoot, if you don't know where to position in certain parts like that, or where a motorcycle comes out and you didn't know it was coming out, and it can kill you as well. I don't know if they one-hit kill you, the motorcycles, but they will take, if not, they will take most of your health. So, it's good to remember things like that. So I recommend using save and load states to practice the levels, practice sections of the levels. Like maybe first practice the first half, then make a save state and practice the second half of the level. Then make another state for the boss and practice the boss until you're comfortable with it. That's usually the kind of shit I do when I'm breaking down games with practice. See, I got killed by that grenade unnecessarily. That would have been totally avoidable had I memorized that the guy was going to throw the grenade. I don't think I had a lot of practice with this level, but it was enough to beat it. The boss was the main issue that I had with this level. He was always a problematic boss for me, but I got good enough at him after playing the game again. And I used states to practice him, directly. But yeah, a lot of times you'll see enemies that look exactly the same, but they behave differently for some reason. Like some of them are faster, and it can throw you off. But you'll learn to know what they anticipate after you play the levels. Here you can only punch. Since you're in the water, it doesn't let you kick. So basically, I would recommend, moving around so you don't get stabbed or punched by these guys. You'll see me move around and deal with these guys better later in the game. At this point, like I said, I wasn't as refined here. Because I was just in the early stages of just beating the levels. But if you zigzag more, you don't see me zigzagging here, moving up and down. If I would have done that more, I wouldn't have taken so much damage. And I end up doing that later in later water sections. I go in here because I think there's something useful in here. Maybe a brass knuckle or an armor, which is like a bulletproof vest. It's pretty much, it's the armor. So that'll protect you from knives and bullets. And you can, not if you get stabbed, strangely enough, but if a knife is thrown at you or a bullet is shot at you, it'll bounce off of you. And it doesn't matter how many times you get hit, it won't wear out unless you lose your life. Then it goes away, but it makes it so you don't have to worry about all these bullets being fired. It is kind of strange that, even while wearing this, if you get stabbed, you'll die, or lose life, but you won't. If somebody throws a knife at you or shoots you, you'll be fine. Just stay up here and you won't get hit by the motorcycles when around this part. I recommend getting the armor because there's a lot of guys with guns here, and if you get hit by one bullet, you do lose a life. So knives may kill you in one hit too. I'm not sure. If not, they'll take at least half your health. So either way, it's not good. So these guys can be fast and they can be tricky. It's always good to try to group enemies together as closely together as possible so you can hit multiple of them at the same time. That's why you see me moving around a lot. And later you'll see me doing this a lot more effectively. But this was my first time playing in a while, so I wasn't playing as well as I would be later on. But yeah, basically, as long as you're kicking when they're approaching you from the front, they'll walk right into it and you can combo them. They won't be able to stab through that most of the time, so it's a very safe way to deal with enemies in general. They all pretty much follow that rule, aside from bosses, which you have to treat differently, but regular enemies pretty much will all fall for that. There's different timings and movements of the regular enemies that you'll just get used to, but there's really not that many different types. There's maybe 3 main types of enemies on the ground and scuba divers in the water, but there's not a ton of different enemy types. You fight a lot of the same enemies again and again in this game. It could definitely have more enemy variety. See, the knife bounced off of me because I had the armor. If I didn't have that, you can see how many projectiles are fired in this area. So the armor is really useful to get for this level. For some levels, it's not as useful, but most of the time it will save your ass if you don't know what's coming up, as far as if you don't remember when the guys are going to come out and shoot. You do get an indication when the guys come on screen because they turn around and shoot usually, but even so, it's easy, if you don't line yourself up right, you can't get killed. It's also very good to have the armor for this guy because you don't have to worry about his shotgun spread. All you got to do is try to focus on jump kicking him when he crosses your path by pressing both buttons at the same time. He will start throwing more grenades as he gets closer to death, so you got to be careful of that. But you don't have to worry about the shotgun, and that can be really hard to dodge when you're trying to, fight him and dodge his grenades. I got him into a little 2-hit combo there. But yeah, so the armor is definitely worth getting for this stage. Aside from the area prior to the boss, the boss himself is very dangerous without the armor. But yeah, so now the game will start to get progressively harder. And I believe this stage was quite a decent difficulty increase from the previous stage. I think because it's pretty long. Enemies can be very aggressive too sometimes, so it definitely takes some getting used to as far as how to manage multiple enemies at once. But you will get good at the crowd control eventually, and then that's when you'll start getting closer to beating the game. That's the main thing you have to master, because most of this game you're dealing with the same enemies again and again. group after group. So, and it's not like you have, every area is pretty much a wide open area to fight them. So it's not like you have scenarios that are that unique. It's a lot of the same type of thing again and again. So once you learn that skill, you'll be able to, utilize that throughout the entire game. If you see an enemy coming up behind you, stop comboing the guy you're working on and just, start moving around again and try to get them back locked into your kicks again, You don't want to get greedy with the hits and, end up getting stabbed. But you'll learn how to do shit like this where, you have the guys come into your kick combo. While you're comboing one guy, you can kind of line it up so that another guy will walk into the combo and get hit too, you know what I mean? So you can try to utilize that. There's tricks like that you just learn by playing the game. And as you see me get farther and farther in the game, you'll see I start playing better and better as I get more familiar with, crowd controlling all the enemies. After this level, there's one more very long and difficult level. It's the hardest level in the game. But after that, you pretty much beat the game because there is one more level, but it's pretty much just 3 bosses and a few loose enemies. And it's very easy because after you beat the first boss of the boss gauntlet at the end, you get a checkpoint. So even if you waste a continue, you'll start at the checkpoint, and then you only have to beat the second boss again, which you can throw a knife at him and take most of his health. And then the last boss, which is an extremely easy boss that you basically just kick. He lands into your kicks. It's very easy. So, after you beat this level, you'll be getting there, but you're still going to have one more long test, which will be that 4th level. Not much to say here aside from you can go in those doors if you want to get the brass knuckle in the armor. But like I said, had I played this again, I would have just stuck with kicks and not even used the brass knuckles. Because, even though they are faster than the kicks, the punches, and with the brass knuckle they have equal power to the kick, they still don't have the reach, so I just prefer the kicks. Because you really don't need the speed. You can lock them in the combos anyway with the kicks. The speed is not really going to make a difference. Both the punch and the kick basically only have like 1 frame of animation, so as far as the speed of getting the initial hit in, I think it's the same. So it's not about getting that quick hit in, that first quick hit. It doesn't change that. So your kick is fine to start up the combos. It's just that once you get a combo going, your kick is slower. But it doesn't really matter by that point because the enemy's not going to get out of you mashing the kick button again and again. They can't get out of those kick combos anyway, so you really don't need the speed of the punch, because the speed is based on when you already have them locked into a combo. So yeah, I think the brass knuckles are pretty much useless. But I didn't really realize that at this point. Actually, you know what? I take that back. For this level, they're useful because whenever you have to fight scuba divers, the brass knuckles are actually useful because, you can only punch in these sections. So it's probably worth getting the brass knuckle for this level. There are levels where the scuba divers aren't present. So for those levels, I think the brass knuckle is pretty much worthless. But whenever you have water combat, you got to fight these knife guys and these scuba divers. I guess it would be useful for this. The knife guys here are very dangerous too. You see me moving around more. You see how I'm zigzagging now, and the scuba divers aren't able to hit me so much because I'm moving up and down and left and right, and I'm paying attention. And when I see that water, when you see those ripples in the water, they're going to pop up. So you just pay attention to that. These guys are a lot harder than the scuba divers because some of them will throw knives. So you got to be very careful of that. But if you have your armor and you haven't lost your life yet, you'll have your armor. So you won't have to worry about the knives that they throw. You'll just have to focus on punching these guys as they appear. It can make this section a lot easier because at least you don't have to worry about getting hit by a thrown knife. So yeah, for this level, I do recommend getting both the armor and the brass knuckle. Very useful. And just stay up here at the very top. You don't have to dodge anything if you stay at the top. It looks like you do, but that's a safe spot. So don't worry about that. And again, more of the same enemies. Like I said, you just get them in hordes, and it's a lot of the same kind of enemies. Sometimes they surprise me with shit, but that's because I was using my fist instead of my kicks. You know, had I continued to keep kicking, that guy wouldn't have been able to get his stab on me because he can't get through the kick when he's facing you directly. So, as I was saying, just, keep that in mind. Punching these guys like you see me doing is not the way to do it. I mean, you can do it, but it's a lot more riskier than using your kicks. So, just ignore what you see me doing here when I punch guys. Because at this point, I still didn't realize that the kick pretty much owns the entire game. So, you know what I mean? The kick is like the way to go. And you'll pretty much see me only sticking to the kick by later in the game. At this point, like I said, I was still kind of learning a little bit. But yeah, this is a pretty challenging game. Not super hard, but it can be tough. I found the 4th level especially difficult. Because there's some bullshit that's very hard to dodge, which I'll try to explain later on. I could start talking about that level now, but I guess I'll save that for when I'm actually showing the gameplay of the level, because there's not much to say about the rest of this level. But yeah, see, grouping these guys together, like 3 at a time, is the ultimate. And then going over their bodies and kicking as they're getting up will finish them off. So, whenever you can set something up like that, it really groups them together and destroys them. So, that's pretty much the ultimate crowd control that you can do. Be aware of those grenades. I believe in that door right there is you can get full life by beating some easy guys. I believe so. Right, yeah. The door that I skipped, that little cave opening, you could get full life if you go in there and beat some easy guys. I just didn't need it. For this guy, all you got to do is just get him in the corner, or just basically just get your first punch on him and just keep punching the shit out of him. For this guy, I use punches in practice, so I don't know if a kick is as effective, but I recommend just punch the shit out of the guy. And that's about it. I don't think you don't even need to get him in a corner, but you may have to walk with your punches to make sure that your punches are still on him. But it's very easy. Of course, just practice it with save states before you do the whole level, just to make sure that you are able to pull it off when you get there. There's no sense in dying when you get to the end of the level, when you could have practiced it. So yeah, for this part, this is the hard level, so the hardest level. So, get the machine gun. And I'm just using the smack with the gun for now because I don't want to waste my bullets. Because I like to use them on the harder guys. But you don't have to do that. Of course you can do it however you want. But I skipped the first door because the first door had brass knuckles in it, which I didn't want. Because by this point I'm not using the punches anymore, as I mentioned. So I don't even get the brass knuckles anymore. This part I just line up the guys. I try to shoot them 2 at a time when I can, to save bullets. So try to conserve your ammo and always try to line them up. If you can get 2 or 3 guys lined up, that's the best. So here I just grabbed the armor because I found the armor useful for this level. So yeah, again, see, I line up 2 guys at a time, and sometimes I get 3 lined up in certain parts of the game. So keep that in mind. I wasted some bullets there, but try to be conservative with your bullets and get the most out of your shots. Because it'll save you a lot of trouble when you don't have to fight a bunch of hard guys, because you can just one-shot kill them with the gun. The gun is extremely powerful. You can even use the gun on the helicopter boss in the first level, and it kills it in 2 bursts of fire. The Ripper 999, my good friend actually pointed that out to me when he checked the video of the game. I didn't know that. That's why I used the grenades, but yeah, so here, just line up the guys. You don't have to worry about getting shot or getting knives thrown at you if you have your armor. So you can just concentrate on shooting these guys. And soon is a very hard part coming up where I didn't even, when I was practicing the game, I was like, fuck it, I don't even care about getting this part down that well. I'm just going to take the damage and run through the area and then just deal with it and beat the rest of the level on whatever health I have left. And that was kind of my attitude. But for some weird reason, when I actually did my successful run, I managed to only get hit once on that part and dodge it pretty well. But I was not doing that too much in practice. So, you know, I pulled it out of my ass when it counted. But, you know, it is a hard part. So I more suggest just trying to run through it and not get stuck. Because what'll happen is, you know, be aware of all these guys with grenades, obviously. I mean, not much needs to be said about some of this stuff. But be aware that with these lasers coming up, if you get hit by a diagonal laser, there's a good chance that not only will it drain most of your life, but as you're getting up from the shot, there's a good chance that you'll get comboed to death and lose all your lives and have to restart the level. It's extremely fucking cheap. You know, it's one of those things that's just extremely fucking cheap. So that's the reason that I kind of decided, you know, fuck it, I'm just going to try to just keep moving and run through it. And I recommend that approach and just dealing with the consequences, even though it's a long level and you really don't want to lose lives. But losing one life is, you know, it's not going to destroy your run. You know, you'll be able to do it if you get good enough at the level. So you can do that, or you can just try to mimic what I did in this video. Like I said, I ended up doing better than I expected when it counted, but not so well in practice. But yeah, you're dealing with so many of these guys. I still haven't lost my first life yet on this level at this point, which will probably change soon, but I think it's when I get to those laser traps that I end up getting hit and losing a life. But yeah, this level's tough, because it kind of counts on you to fuck up with the amount of enemies they throw at you. You know, it only takes a few little sloppy fuck-ups for your life to start draining. You take a lot of damage when you get hit by a lot of these guys. So, but this is the worst part of the level. I mean, these lasers are really nasty when they hit you. So I recommend just try to keep walking and ignore the enemies if you can, and keep walking and just walk through all this shit. But if you can stop for a moment as you're walking and let the lasers pass like I did, then you'll be able to get through them. But you got to be very careful with that, because those diagonal lasers, if you get hit by one of those diagonal lasers, it can really trap you and drain your lives. So definitely make save states and practice that part. Because even if you pass it your first time, you may have gotten lucky, because, you know, most likely you're not going to know how you pass it the first time. So just practice it and try to beat it a few times at least. You know, so that you're confident with it. Because that's the kind of part that, you know, every time you get here, I would get here a lot and just die because I kept dying on that part. And then I'd have to redo the level each time. If you stay at the bottom or the top in this area, the motorcycle guys won't hit you. I have forgotten about them a few times and gotten run over, which sucks. But, you know, like I said, you want to be aware. So, like, I forgot about that knife, and I got stabbed. This is part you'll see me get shot by shit because I forgot about these gun and knife throwing guys, and I didn't remember where they were all coming out at. So I did get sloppy with that. I actually barely managed to beat this level in this attempt. I just scraped by. It gets nasty at the end. See, I lose another life here. And now I'm down to my last life. And there's still a good deal left of the level. You know, it's a long level. See, and I got hit by that shit. Now I'm down to half health. Less than half health. And, you know, I'm very close to being dead by this point. But I do find a life refill. It's in one of the rooms. I'll show you where that is. It's good to keep that one in mind. Because I didn't test all the doors and see what they all have in them. But that life refill you will want. Because a lot of the doors in this level you do not want to go into. If you do go into these doors, I should have mentioned that in the beginning of the video. If you do go into any of those doors and you don't know what's in the door, there's a good chance you're going to be fighting the second boss again, which is a very annoying boss. Unless you're good at him, then you know you probably won't care. But he's very annoying, and he can drain your lives because he shoots you, and he has grenades. So he's pretty much, there's several of them in this level. You go in a door and you fight the second boss again and again. It's pretty ridiculous. But there's no reason to go in those doors. So unless you really want the item. I don't know what item would be so great that you would want to fight that guy. But If that's what you want, go for it. But I will show you a door that's pretty easy, where you only have to defeat like 6 regular guys, I believe it is, and you'll get a life refill. It's worth doing it if your life is down to like half a piece of life, like mine is right here, and then you can get your full life back. As usual, try to use your gun conservatively. Try to line up as many guys as you can, obviously. When your gun is down to no bullets, it's good to just press the fire button so that the gun just goes away, so that you don't get hit when you're pressing the attack button instead. I think I paused it for a while to try to catch my breath. I was getting kind of intense, to say the least, because I got kind of sick of replaying this level again and again. So I did take a few pauses. I also had to shake my hands out because they do go numb from time to time. They fall asleep and I got to shake them out. But there was a lot of tension by this point. You'll see I save state a lot too. You'll see the notification in the bottom left corner in yellow letters. I do that in case I do fuck up. I want to practice what I had left and see if I can pull it off on the limited life I have. I like to practice different scenarios. If I fuck up, I may practice the end of the level again to refresh myself, so that I have a better chance next time. And eventually, by doing that, you will, beat games by practicing parts again and again. So yeah, here I decide to deal with these enemies. If I get hit once, I'll just be dead and have to restart the whole level. So it does get kind of intense. But see, I grouped all 3 together. Whenever you can do that, it's great. Otherwise, these parts can be hard, if you don't group these guys. You don't know how to crowd control these guys. They can pull a lot of bullshit. They have some rolling moves that they're invincible while they're rolling, so... They can catch up to you very fast, so you really have to be able to get out of the way and counter them. But yeah, pretty much get full life. I think that may be full life. So, now I'm in decent shape. Luckily, the boss of this level is very easy. He is dangerous, though. If he shoots you, you'll die. He does have a gun, but he doesn't. He uses it very, very infrequently, but if you're unfortunate enough to get shot, you will lose a life. And, there's a good chance by this point you won't have any lives left to spare. So, it's still a tense moment dealing with the boss. But once you get him in a corner, he's fucked. You just keep punching. I think kicks work too, but you just keep punching and he'll just keep walking into your punch or your kick again and again. He will not be able to get out of that. So you can just punch or kick him to death at that point. And I'll be able to demonstrate that now. I do actually take some damage, and it starts to get kind of close again. But luckily I pulled it off. I always try to save knives for whatever's coming up next. It's better to use the heavier weapons on the harder guys if you can. Because, you don't want to waste them on the single-hit enemies, usually, that you can punch or kick in one hit. Or the really weak, like regular green soldiers. I prefer to use the weapons, on the stronger guys when I can. I mean, if I have a bunch of extra weapons lying around, then I'll use them on the weaker guys. But it's good to try to plan ahead. Yeah, see, if that bullet hit me, I would have been dead. But now the idea is to try to get him in a corner. Is what I'm trying to do. See, he almost got me too. But now this is the corner. See, once you get him. He's just going to keep walking into your fist until he's dead, so. But I recommend practicing that because, it's not hard to do, but it is easy to fuck up and get shot in the beginning. It happened to me a lot even in practice, so. I was always unlucky with getting shot for some reason or getting pistol whipped. So I'd recommend practicing it just so you build your confidence a little bit and you don't get too twitchy and nervous and fuck up on that guy. But yeah, so now you're pretty much home free. You're on the last level. And after you beat this tank, you will get a checkpoint, a permanent checkpoint, so that when you continue, you will start from that checkpoint. So all you have to focus on now is using these 3 lives just to beat this tank. So don't worry about having extra lives for the upcoming parts. So the idea here is stay in the upper left corner. I found that to be the safe spot where grenades never hit in the upper left corner. And the tank cannot run you over. So Stand in that upper left corner when you need a safe spot and venture out to try to get grenades when you feel it's safe. But try to just, combo these guys in this corner. And don't be reckless when guys go off screen. Anytime an enemy goes off screen, stay away from the edge of the screen that they're on, because they will hit you and you won't be able to see what's going on. And you won't be able to hit them while they're in that off screen position. So, if that's going on, be aware of that and stay away. Always let the enemies come out to you, lure them out. And, so what I do is I pretty much just hide in the left corner when the grenades are going off, and then when I feel, and let's say I made a bad judgment there, but when I feel it's safe, I try to venture out, grab a grenade, and go back up to that left corner, that safe spot. And that's all I did for this. I mean, it makes it quite easy. It's quite an easy boss when you do that. If you try to get in the midst of everything and dodge the grenades as they're coming down, it's a lot harder. Because, you're trying to combo guys and kill them, and then you got grenades coming down as well while you're stuck in these combos. And if a guy hits you, he'll lock you in place too. So it's very dangerous. So I just use the crowd control in these corners and try to deal with the guys this way. Sometimes the guys will not come out far. They try to lure you to come in close to where the tank is throwing all the grenades. Don't fall for that shit, because you see I got killed. So just wait for those guys to come farther out. There will be guys that will venture farther out and try to get to you. So just wait for those guys. Unless you want to risk it. Just depending on how many lives you have left, you can take whatever risks you want. But when you hit it about 8 times with grenades, the boss will die. So you'll get it eventually. Like I said, you'll have 3 lives to try it again and again. So it's not going to be hard. And like I said, the safe spot. So now you get your checkpoint. So if you die, you'll always start here. It makes it very easy. So for this, all you're going to do is deal with a few easy enemies. There is one hard knife guy that's really aggressive for some reason and takes extra hits. He looks like all the other guys, so you got to be careful. It's in the second wave of knife guys. I'll explain. Yeah, see these guys? One of them is very dangerous. So, he'll stab super fast. He doesn't seem to go crazy when there's multiple enemies on screen. I think when the slowdown goes away, he starts going really fast. So try to group them together and kick them 2 at a time. And hopefully you'll get the hard one in that mix, and you can finish him off. Also, leave an extra knife for this guy. This is the second boss, so you know how to fight him, but throw a knife into him immediately. You're not going to have armor this time to benefit you, but if you hit him with the knife that you saved, you only have to jump kick him twice and he'll be dead. So it makes it very easy. And now all you got to do is deal with the very easy final boss. For this guy, all you have to do is just let him jump over you and get ready for him to land into your kick. He'll pretty much walk into it after he lands. You may take some damage, but it's not really going to matter. He doesn't take that many hits. So, he will fake you out, but he's going to get up again. So do the same thing again. Same shit. After you kick him into his testicles enough times, his balls will explode, and then he'll die. That's when you know he's dead. His balls explode, and then the screen goes black. And then clean your shoes off on his balls, and you'll be fucking done. So, hopefully that helps. Let me know if there's any other things that I can explain to break it down better. And, congratulations for your hard work. I know it was fucking hard. Very difficult fucking journey. So yeah, as usual, I fast forward through the credits because I don't have time for that shit. But yeah, thanks for watching.